Tonight we relive the WrestleMania main event between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels. This was a key turning point in the history of the Attitude Era. So please join me for some wrestling history, some good commentary, a great match, and loads more. Welcome to Wrestling Wednesday. So here we are, we continue our history of the Attitude Era by getting to one of the most important key matches, the WrestleMania main event between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels. And there are a whole bunch of reasons why this match was so important, and we'll break them down over the course of this match. First of all, this was Shawn Michaels' last ever match for about 2.5 years, but for a time it really was his last match. Many people thought he had genuinely retired for good because of a back injury. He suffered a very serious back injury at a casket match with The Undertaker at the Royal Rumble. He was whipped into it, and I mean, despite for all the big matches, the big bumps that Shawn Michaels took over the years, it was actually just a simple kind of Irish whip into an object caught at the right angle that really caused all the damage, and it caused him a huge. This was a completely genuine injury. Shawn Michaels was well known for losing his smile and faking various knee injuries throughout the time, and we've talked about kind of Shawn's attitude, but this one was 100% genuine, and he was really in a lot of pain for months and even years. And in fact, most of this match actually was taken up with Shawn Michaels really looking in a bad way and with genuine pain across his face. It's amazing that he managed to put on the match that he did. And this is actually quite an unusual match in that it's one of those matches that when you watched it at the time was actually a little bit disappointing. You kind of expected a classic, and at the time it wasn't a classic, but going back and watching it again, it actually is one of those few matches that looks better several years after the event than at the time. And that's because one of the transitions between the kind of the New Generation era and the Attitude Era wasn't just in terms of styles and characters, but also actually in terms of the wrestling involved. Now that bump there, the Shawn Michaels' famous kind of flip into the turnbuckle that he borrowed from Ric Flair, was one of the bumps that really mucked up Shawn's back in this match. He was more or less okay, but also the injury was still there, but he was more or less okay in this match until he took that bump, and from that moment on he was limping all over the place, even collapsing onto the ropes at various points, and would have to like pause for breather in between big moves. So it's amazing they actually managed to put together a fairly well chained match. But yeah, like I said, this match actually kind of improves with age because it's actually a very typical match of the Attitude Era. You know, lots of kind of brawling, lots of kind of going out of the ring, the lots of reversed finishes at the end, very kind of psychological rather than wrestling. And this was perhaps a transition in terms of the WWF from wrestling-based matches into story-based matches. Obviously, lots of people kind of criticised Hulk Hogan for not necessarily having a lot of wrestling in his matches, but you could argue that perhaps the Attitude Era had even less, as it was certainly very kick punch brawl based, and a lot of that is down to Stone Cold because of his injuries, such as his famous neck injuries of the years. He was actually a very limited wrestler at the point he became famous. He still put on great matches, but he did it by actually changing the style in which he wrestled to be more kind of kick punch based, lots of kind of brawling around the place, weapons and things like that. And that's why when you come back and watch this match a few years after the event, you just accept it as a completely normal, very good match, but at the time it was something a little bit different. Now, it was also important because with Shawn Michaels leaving, this being his final match, that left a big gap at the top of the card, which of course Stone Cold was absolutely too pleased to fill. This was his first championship, the one that really started to kick off his feud with Mr. McMahon, because the next night on Raw, or over the next month, Mr. McMahon came out and said, you know, Stone Cold is an appalling champion. He's not the kind of champion I want to be representing my company. They had all the stuff about dressing up in suits and all that kind of stuff. So from this match, the Austin versus McMahon feud really was kicked off, and that really was what set WWF up and sent WCW back down. WCW kind of semi-killed itself, but the Austin versus McMahon feud really was a catalyst, as Shawn Michaels brings in a pair of stairs to match Austin's as they trade off, but unfortunately Stone Cold gets the better of that exchange by simply and calmly placing the staircase through Shawn Michaels' head. So this was a transition match. Shawn Michaels was out. Stone Cold was going to take his place at the absolute top of the WWF. Bret Hart, of course, was already gone because of what happened at Survivor Series and various other contractual issues as well. And so the whole kind of WWF top line was shifting over. Clearly Kevin Nash had gone by this point, Scott Hall, Razor Ramon had gone, The Undertaker, although he was still there, did take some time out around this time and then change his gimmick very strongly into more of that kind of devil worshipping character. Triple H stepped up after this match to be the leader of DX, and then combined that with the New Age Outlaws and China and a few others to be that kind of rebel faction there. Other main eventers started to come through slowly over the next year, such as The Rock, of course. Ken Shamrock was around at that time doing very, very well. Mick Foley was starting to come through, but all of these guys were relatively new to the main event scene, as Shawn Michaels bounces off the ropes and hits a wonderful crossbody on a prone Steve Austin, and then follows that up with a vicious, nasty stomp to the face. Now, there was a rumour that went around after this match that Shawn Michaels refused before this match to actually do the job to Stone Cold, who was being his normal kind of prima donna self, saying that Stone Cold hadn't paid his dues, meaning kind of earned his position to the top of the card, and he wasn't going to do it. And there was a famous kind of story went around that The Undertaker at this WrestleMania sat there and calmly taped his fists up, implying that if Shawn Michaels didn't go through with it, that's what would happen to him. However, Shawn Michaels is aware of this story, as Stone Cold takes it out on Triple H. Shawn Michaels is aware of this story and has denied it. He says it's not true. He says, yes, he was in an awful mood because of his back injury, but there was no question of him not losing to Stone Cold. And whatever happened, to Shawn Michaels' credit, it was a very good match, and he did put Stone Cold over completely clean, which was something he really hadn't done to many people once he hit the main event kind of pairing. I mean, he did have a few losses over that time. He did lose the title a few times, but most of them were under dubious circumstances in some way, as Stone Cold just misses the stairs with that particular manoeuvre. An Irish whip sends Stone Cold back out to the outside, and Shawn Michaels calmly brings him back in, and again they just miss the slam on the stairs. And of course the other big factor in this match, which I haven't actually got in my recreation here, was Mike Tyson. The baddest man in the planet, the Evander Holyfield ear incident, as Stone Cold possibly goes for a superplex, possibly coming down on the stairs here. Shawn Michaels going up for the ride, very, very dangerous potential landing, and Shawn Michaels just survives by landing next to the stairs, and then kips up in Stone Cold's face, hits the flying forearm, and then kips up. Massive comeback routine underway, and a big body slam puts Stone Cold down. Mike Tyson at ringside didn't actually play a big part in his match, and to be honest was quite comical once he turned up. He got various names wrong. He talked about Cold Stone Steve Austin as Shawn Michaels just gets dumped on the stairs. But what Mike Tyson really did bring, if he didn't bring it in his in-ring talent, was mainstream publicity. This was Tyson at his most infamous point, and the WWF got their 3 million or so back for getting Tyson there. The newspapers covered this, even in Britain where the WWF wasn't really a big deal. They put this match on the front page because of the appearance of Mike Tyson, and because Tyson was there, people watched, because Austin was so on fire at this point. As Shawn Michaels counters Stone Cold's top rope elbow with a massive sweet chin music. Could this be the upset? Could history fail to repeat itself? But Austin kicks out on two, goes for the lariat, misses it. Shawn Michaels gets distracted by grabbing the stairs, and then we get a huge atomic drop, putting Shawn Michaels back down before Stone Cold starts going hammering away with those fists, and Shawn Michaels is busted open. But a big enziguri turns it back Shawn Michaels' way. Stone Cold has got to be suffering after that huge maneuver, and we have a capture fisherman suplex. He's held onto the leg, 1, 2, and Stone Cold kicks again. Stone Cold backing up from this, whipping him into the corner, goes for the kick, and he's going to stomp a mud hole in the Heartbreak Kid. So Mike Tyson brought the fans, he brought the papers, Austin brought the charisma, McMahon brought his wonderful bad guy persona, and this was a very key part in the Attitude Era, being the revival, the rebirth, the stunner for the WWF. And with a 1, 2, 3 count almost guaranteed at this point, Stone Cold became the new WWF champion, and by this point you can clearly say that the Attitude Era had arrived. The old guard was gone, the old main eventers were gone, the old wrestling style had been changed, the new blood was here, the brawling was in, the weapons were here, the profanity was ready, McMahon was ready to be the evil owner, and we were set for a hell of a couple of years of famous wrestling history, and we will cover them on the Adipose TV. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this little slice of wrestling history, then do give the video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well for wrestling videos every Wednesday and a load of other cool stuff the rest of the time. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.